Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at the stars. He was the captain of the UES Horizon, the first human ship to travel so far from Earth. The ship was not very big, only 200 meters long, but it was the best that humanity could build. Jake felt proud every time he looked at it. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of computers. Jake's crew of 30 people worked at their stations, checking instruments and watching for any signs of trouble. They had been traveling for 3 months now, exploring new star systems and learning about the galaxy. Amy Carter sat at the sensor station, her eyes focused on the screen in front of her. She was young, only 25, but she was the best sensor operator that Earth had ever trained. Her job was to watch for anything unusual in space around them. "Captain," Amy said suddenly, her voice breaking the silence, "I'm seeing something strange on sensors. There are a lot of energy readings coming from the next star system." Jake walked over to look at her screen. The readings showed bright flashes of light and energy bursts that could only mean one thing. "Looks like a battle," he said quietly. The galaxy had been at war for over 300 years. Two great powers, the Zephyrian Empire and the Crystalline Coalition, had been fighting each other since before humans had learned to grow crops. Both sides had amazing technology that humans could barely understand. Their weapons could destroy entire cities with one shot, and their ships could move faster than anything humans had ever built. Lisa Brooks, the chief engineer, looked up from her station. She was older than most of the crew, with gray hair and kind eyes. She had helped design the Horizon back on Earth. "Captain, we're getting a message from someone out there. They're asking us to identify ourselves." Jake nodded. "Put it on the main screen." The face that appeared was not human. It had blue skin and large black eyes with no hair on its head. This was a Zephyrian, one of the warrior race that controlled half the galaxy. When it spoke, the computer translated its words into English. "Unknown vessel, this is War Commander Veltok of the Zephyrian Third Fleet. You are entering a combat zone. State your purpose or be destroyed." Jake took a deep breath. This was the first time his crew had spoken directly to one of the great powers of the galaxy. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Horizon. We are explorers from Earth. We mean no harm to anyone." The Zephyrian's face showed what might have been surprise. "Earth? The primitive world that discovered space travel 5 years ago? What are you doing so far from home?" Jake felt his face turn red with anger, but he kept his voice calm. "We are exploring and learning about the galaxy. We have permission from both the Empire and the Coalition to travel in neutral space." "This is no longer neutral space, human. The Coalition has moved their fleet here, and we are responding. Your small ship could be destroyed by accident. Leave now for your own safety." The screen went dark, and Jake's crew looked at him. Ben Rodriguez, the weapons officer, shook his head. "They're treating us like children, Captain. Like we're too weak to matter." Jake understood how Ben felt. Ever since humans had made contact with the galaxy 5 years ago, both great powers had treated them like a curiosity. Human technology was seen as old and simple compared to their advanced energy weapons and force fields. "Sir," Amy said from her station, "I'm reading massive energy signatures from the battle zone. Both fleets are fully engaged. There are at least 50 ships on each side." Jake walked to the center of the bridge and looked at the tactical display. The battle was happening near a planet called Kepler 442, which had been fought over for decades. Neither side could claim victory, so they just kept fighting. "Captain," said Ben, "our orders from Earth Command are clear. We observe and learn, but we don't get involved in their wars." Jake nodded. Earth's leaders had been very specific about this. Humanity was too new and too weak to take sides in a galactic war. Their job was to watch, learn, and try to understand how the galaxy worked. "Set course for the asteroid field in the outer system," Jake ordered. "We'll monitor the battle from there and stay out of trouble." Lisa started working on her console. "Course laid in, Captain. We'll be there in 2 hours." As the Horizon moved away from the battle, Jake thought about humanity's place in the galaxy. Earth had only 37 ships that could travel between stars, while the Zephyrians and Coalition each had thousands. Human weapons were simple railguns that fired metal bullets, while their enemies had plasma cannons and energy torpedoes. The galaxy saw humans as primitives playing with toys. Their ships were slow, their weapons were old-fashioned, and their technology was hundreds of years behind the great powers. Sometimes Jake wondered if they were right. Amy looked at her sensors again. Captain, the battle is getting bigger. More ships are arriving on both sides. It looks like this could be one of the largest battles of the war. Jake watched the energy readings on the screen. Each flash of light represented weapons that could level mountains. Each explosion meant that hundreds or thousands of beings had just died. The war had been going on for so long that entire generations had lived and died without ever knowing peace. "Sir," Ben said quietly, "do you ever wonder what would happen if humans had to fight in this war?" Jake was quiet for a moment. "I hope we never find out, Ben. Our job is to explore and make friends, not to fight wars." Lisa looked up from her engineering station. "Captain, all systems are running normally. We should reach the asteroid field safely." Jake nodded and sat down in his captain's chair. Around him, his crew continued their work, monitoring sensors and checking systems. They were good people, all volunteers who had left Earth to see the galaxy and learn about other worlds. None of them knew that in just a few hours, their small ship would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. None of them could imagine that their simple, old-fashioned weapons would make the entire galaxy tremble with fear. For now, they were just explorers, watching a war that had nothing to do with them. But soon, Jake Morrison and his crew would discover that sometimes being primitive was exactly what the galaxy needed. 3 hours had passed since the horizon reached the asteroid field. Jake Morrison stood on his bridge watching his crew work. They had been studying the rocks around them, looking for valuable minerals that Earth might want to mine someday. It was peaceful work, far from the battle that still raged in the inner system. Amy Carter was running scans on a large asteroid when her sensors picked up something else. "Captain, I'm detecting a ship approaching our position. It's moving fast and looks damaged." Jake moved to look at her screen. "Can you identify it?" "Yes, sir. It's a coalition cruiser about 800 meters long. I'm reading multiple hull breaches and their engines are barely working. The ship that appeared on their view screen was badly hurt. Parts of its crystal-like hull were cracked and dark, and it was trailing gas and debris." Jake could see that it was trying to hide among the asteroids. "Captain," Lisa Brooks called from her engineering station. "I'm picking up another ship behind the coalition vessel, much larger. It's Zephyrian." The second ship that came into view made Jake's stomach drop. It was huge, nearly 3 kilometers long with dark metal armor and weapons covering every surface. This was a Zephyrian dreadnought, one of the most powerful warships in the galaxy. "Sir," Ben Rodriguez said from the weapons station, "the big ship is charging its main cannon. Looks like they're going to finish off the coalition cruiser." Before Jake could respond, a message came through on the emergency channel. The face on the screen was not human, but Jake could see the fear in its large, crystal blue eyes. "Any ship in this area, this is Captain Veltar of the coalition ship Starlight's Edge. Our shields are failing and our weapons are offline. We have over 800 crew members aboard, including families and children evacuated from the Altair colonies. Please, if there is any honor in your species, help us escape." Jake felt his heart pound. The Zephyrian dreadnought was called the Void Render, according to their database. It was commanded by War Prime Theclon, a warrior who had never lost a battle. The coalition ship was helpless against such a powerful enemy. "Captain," Amy said quietly, "I'm reading life signs on that coalition ship. There are definitely civilians aboard. Women, children, elderly people." Jake stared at the tactical display. Every rule said that he should stay out of this fight. Earth's orders were clear. Humanity was neutral in this war. Getting involved could start a conflict that Earth could never win. But Jake Morrison had not joined the Space Navy to watch innocent people die. "Lisa, what's the status of our railgun systems?" Chief Brooks looked surprised. "Sir, all 6 forward railguns are ready to fire, but against a ship that size, they wouldn't do much damage. Their armor is too thick and their shields are too strong. I'm not asking you to evaluate their effectiveness, Chief. I'm asking if they work." "Yes, sir. The Mark 7 railguns are fully operational." Jake turned to his weapons officer. "Ben, can you target the Zephyrian ship's main weapon?" Ben looked at his console, then back at Jake. "Captain, even if we hit them perfectly, our tungsten rounds won't penetrate their shields. We'd just bounce off like throwing rocks at a tank." The Zephyrian dreadnought was moving closer to the coalition ship. Jake could see its massive main cannon powering up, crackling with deadly energy. In minutes, maybe seconds, it would fire and the coalition ship would be destroyed. "Sir," Amy said urgently, "the Zephyrian ship is hailing us." The face that appeared on screen was terrifying. War Prime Teclon had dark red skin, sharp teeth, and yellow eyes that seemed to glow with anger. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding metal. "Human vessel, you are interfering with military operations. This coalition ship attacked our supply convoy and killed Zephyrian civilians. They will face justice. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed with them." Jake stood up straight, looking directly at the alien warrior. "War Prime Teclon, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth ship Horizon. I can see that ship is carrying civilians, including children. Stand down your weapons and allow them safe passage." Teclon's mandibles clicked in what Jake realized was laughter. "Human, your vessel is barely larger than our escape pods. Your weapons are primitive kinetic devices that our ancestors abandoned thousands of years ago. You have no shields, no energy weapons, and no chance of survival. Move aside before you embarrass your species." "Negative. We will not allow you to fire on civilians." The War Prime's expression changed to one of genuine puzzlement. "Are you insane? Your ship carries what, 30 crew members? Mine carries 40,000 warriors. Your weapons cannot harm us, and one shot from our smallest gun will vaporize your ship completely." Jake felt his crew watching him. He knew they were all thinking the same thing. This was suicide. But he also knew that if they did nothing, hundreds of innocent people would die while they watched. "Ben, target the center of that dreadnought. If we're only getting one shot, let's make it count." "Captain," Lisa Brooks called out, "what if we're thinking about this wrong?" Jake turned to look at his chief engineer. "What do you mean?" "Our railguns fire tungsten rounds at 45,000 kilometers per second. That's fast, but not fast enough to get through their defenses. But what if we used more power? What if we overloaded the system? How much more power?" Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her console, running calculations. "If we reroute all power from the fusion reactor, including life support and engines, and overload every magnetic coil in the railgun system, we could accelerate a projectile to much higher speeds." "How much higher?" "Maybe 30% of light speed. Maybe more." Jake felt his breath catch. 30% of light speed was 90,000 kilometers per second. At that velocity, even a simple tungsten rod would carry incredible kinetic energy. "What would happen to our ship?" Lisa was quiet for a moment. "The recoil would probably tear us apart. The magnetic coils would burn out. We'd lose all power and life support. And if the railgun barrel can't handle the stress, it might explode and take half the ship with it." Jake looked around his bridge at 30 faces that had become family over the past 2 years. These people had volunteered to explore the galaxy, not to die in a war that wasn't theirs. "Crew, you heard the chief. This shot will likely destroy our ship and kill us all. Anyone who wants to take the escape pods and get to safety should do it now. I won't think less of anyone who chooses to live." Jake waited, but not one person moved toward the escape pods. Amy Carter spoke first. "Captain, there are children on that coalition ship." Ben Rodriguez nodded. "We all knew this job was dangerous when we signed up." Lisa Brooks smiled. "Besides, I want to see if my calculations are right." Jake felt pride swell in his chest. "Then let's show this galaxy what humans can do when innocent lives are at stake." War Prime Teclon watched the small human ship with growing irritation. The primitive vessel had positioned itself between his dreadnought and the coalition cruiser, like a child standing in front of a charging bull. He had given them a chance to leave with their lives, but these humans seemed determined to die for strangers. "Human captain," Teclon transmitted one final time. "You have 10 seconds to move your ship. After that, I will consider you an enemy combatant and destroy you along with the coalition vessel." The response came immediately. "War Prime, we will not move. Do what you think you must." Teclon shook his massive head. In 300 years of war, he had never seen such pointless bravery. The human ship carried simple kinetic weapons that fired metal projectiles. Such weapons had been obsolete for millennia. His shields could stop anything the humans could throw at him. "Very well," he growled. "Fire main cannon. Destroy both ships." On the horizon, Jake Morrison watched the Zephyrian dreadnought's main weapon begin to glow with deadly energy. He had perhaps 60 seconds before it fired, maybe less. Around him, his crew worked frantically to prepare their impossible shot. "Lisa, how long do you need?" Jake asked. Chief Brooks was rerouting power from every system on the ship. "Give me 2 minutes to bypass all the safety systems. 1 minute to charge the magnetic coils. Then we can fire." "We don't have 2 minutes." "Then we'll have to risk it. I'm cutting power to life support now. Emergency lighting only." The bridge went dark except for the glow of computer screens. Jake could hear the ship's fusion reactor straining as all its power was redirected to the railgun system. Deep in the ship's hull, magnetic coils designed for normal operations began carrying currents that made them glow white-hot. Ben, is the target locked? Ben Rodriguez had never felt so focused in his life. His targeting computer was struggling to track the massive enemy ship. Target acquired, Captain. Range is 800,000 kilometers. Projectile will take 8 seconds to reach target at maximum velocity. Amy, what's the status of the Zephyrian weapon? Amy Carter's sensors were showing massive energy buildup in the Dreadnought's main cannon. Their weapon will fire in 90 seconds, sir. It's some kind of focused plasma beam. One hit will vaporize both us and the Coalition ship. Jake felt sweat on his forehead despite the cooling air. Everything depended on timing now. They had to fire their shot and hope it reached the enemy before the enemy destroyed them. Lisa, talk to me. Power at maximum, Captain. I'm reading energy levels that should be impossible. The magnetic coils are barely holding together. Lisa's voice was tense but steady. If we're going to do this, we need to do it now. Jake took a deep breath. Ben, prepare to fire on my command. In the railgun chamber, a simple tungsten rod sat waiting. It was nothing special, just a metal projectile the size of a baseball bat. But the magnetic forces building around it were beyond anything ever attempted by human engineering. Captain, Amy called out urgently. The Zephyrian cannon is almost ready to fire. 60 seconds. Jake watched the tactical display, calculating angles and timing. The enemy ship was huge, but it was also moving, trying to get a better shot at the Coalition vessel. He would have one chance, maybe less. 45 seconds, Amy announced. Lisa, are we ready? As ready as we'll ever be, Captain. Fair warning. When we fire this thing, the recoil is going to be massive. Everyone should strap in. Jake grabbed his command chair's safety harness. Around the bridge, his crew did the same. Ben, on my mark. 30 seconds to enemy firing, Amy called. Jake watched the Zephyrian dreadnought grow larger on the screen. 3 kilometers of advanced alien technology, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Against it, 30 humans and a ship built from Earth steel and human determination. 20 seconds. The moment felt frozen in time. Jake thought about Earth, billions of kilometers away. He thought about the families on the Coalition ship waiting to die. He thought about his crew who had chosen to stay and fight even knowing they would probably die. 10 seconds to enemy fire. Jake Morrison, captain of humanity's first deep space exploration vessel, made his choice. Ben, fire. What happened next changed everything. The Horizon's fusion reactor, designed to power the ship for decades, dumped its entire output into the railgun system in less than 4 seconds. The magnetic coils, glowing white-hot from the impossible currents, focused that energy into accelerating one tungsten projectile down the ship's main gun barrel. The projectile left the railgun at 97,000 kilometers per second, 1/3 the speed of light, a velocity that no kinetic weapon in galactic history had ever achieved. The recoil hit the horizon like the fist of an angry god. The ship bucked and twisted as forces tried to tear it apart. Emergency lights exploded. Computer consoles sparked and died. The railgun barrel, stressed beyond its design limits, cracked along its entire length. But the shot was away. War Prime Theclon saw the flash of light from the human ship and dismissed it. Some kind of primitive projectile weapon, no doubt. His shields would deflect it easily. He focused on his main cannon, now ready to fire. Destroy them, he ordered, but his weapons officer was staring at his instruments in confusion. War Prime, I'm reading an incoming projectile, but the velocity readings cannot be correct. What do you mean? Sir, the computer says it's moving at nearly 1/3 light speed. That's impossible for a kinetic weapon. Theclon felt the first hint of concern. How long until impact? 3 seconds, sir. 3 seconds was not enough time to move a ship 3 kilometers long. Not enough time to adjust shields or fire defensive weapons. Barely enough time to understand what was happening. The tungsten rod hit the Void Render shields at 97,000 kilometers per second. The shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, offered no resistance to simple matter moving at relativistic speeds. The projectile passed through the energy barrier as if it didn't exist. Then it hit the ship's armor. Advanced Zephyrian hull plating, capable of withstanding plasma cannons and antimatter torpedoes, was designed to absorb and distribute energy. But kinetic energy at 1/3 light speed followed different rules. The tungsten rod punched through 3 kilometers of the most advanced armor in the galaxy, like it was paper. The projectile entered the dreadnought's hull near the bow, passed through weapons bays, crew quarters, engineering sections, and the main reactor, and exited near the stern, leaving a perfectly cylindrical hole 20 meters in diameter. But the real destruction came from physics. At 97,000 kilometers per second, the tungsten rod carried kinetic energy equivalent to a 50 megaton nuclear weapon. When it transferred that energy to the Zephyrian ship, the result was catastrophic. The void render didn't just explode, it disintegrated. 3 kilometers of advanced alien engineering became an expanding cloud of superheated plasma. War Prime Teclon, his crew of 40,000 warriors, and the most powerful warship in the Zephyrian fleet simply ceased to exist. The shockwave from the impact rippled through space, rocking both the Coalition cruiser and the crippled Horizon. On worlds throughout the system, seismic sensors registered the gravitational disturbance. Space traffic stopped to stare at the expanding fireball where the dreadnought had been. In the silence that followed, Jake Morrison slowly unbuckled his safety harness and looked around his bridge. Half the computer stations were dead, the lights were out, and the air smelled of burned electronics. But his crew was alive. Amy, report. Amy Carter's voice was shaky but professional. Captain, the Zephyrian dreadnought is gone. Completely destroyed. I'm not reading any debris larger than a few meters. Jake felt his legs give out and he sat down hard in his command chair. They had done it. Somehow, impossibly, they had destroyed one of the most powerful warships in the galaxy with a single shot. The galaxy would never be the same. The silence in space after the void render's destruction lasted only moments before chaos erupted across the galaxy. News of what had happened spread faster than any human ship could travel, carried by the quantum communication networks that connected every major world and fleet. On the Coalition cruiser Starlight's Edge, Captain Veltar stared at the empty space where the Zephyrian dreadnought had been. Her crystalline features showed complete disbelief. In 300 years of war, she had never seen anything like what the humans had just done. "Communications officer," she said in a voice that barely worked, "send an immediate priority message to Coalition High Command. Tell them that the humans have a weapon that can destroy our largest ships with a single shot." The communications officer, a young Coalition ensign, looked up from his station. "Captain, should I mention that they use this weapon to save us?" Veltar nodded slowly. "Yes. Make sure they understand that the humans could have stayed safe, but they chose to risk their lives to protect civilians they had never met." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening in the halls of power. The Zephyrian High Command received word of the Void Render's destruction, while they were planning their next major offensive. Fleet Admiral Mortek, Supreme Commander of all Zephyrian forces, read the report 3 times before he could believe it. "A single shot?" he asked his intelligence chief. "One projectile destroyed an entire dreadnought?" "Yes, Admiral. Our science division is analyzing the energy readings. They estimate the projectile was moving at approximately 1/3 light speed. At that velocity, even a simple tungsten rod carries the explosive force of a major nuclear weapon." Mortek was quiet for a long time. The Zephyrians had built their empire on military might. Their dreadnoughts were supposed to be unstoppable. If the humans could destroy them so easily, everything changed. "What do we know about human military capabilities?" he asked. "Very little, sir. They have fewer than 40 ships capable of interstellar travel. Their technology appears primitive by our standards. But if they can accelerate projectiles to such velocities, then their primitive technology might be the most dangerous thing in the galaxy," Mortek finished. On Earth, the reaction was just as dramatic. Admiral Susan Carter, head of Earth's Space Defense Force and Amy Carter's aunt, was in a meeting with the Global Council when the message arrived. She read it twice, then looked up at the assembled representatives of Earth's nations. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said quietly, "I've just received word that the Horizon has single-handedly destroyed a Zephyrian dreadnought." The room erupted in questions and exclamations. President Williams of the North American Federation stood up. "Admiral, please tell me this is not some kind of joke." "No joke, sir. Captain Morrison engaged a Zephyrian warship that was about to destroy a coalition vessel carrying civilians. Using an overloaded railgun, they achieved a kill shot against one of the most powerful ships in the galaxy." Dr. Chen, Earth's leading expert on alien technology, leaned forward. Admiral, the military implications of this are staggering. If we can replicate what the Horizon did, we become the most feared military power in the galaxy overnight. Admiral Carter finished. The question is, what do we do with that power? Back in space, Jake Morrison was dealing with more immediate concerns. The Horizon was badly damaged from the railgun shot, with most systems offline and life support failing. His crew was working frantically to keep the ship operational. "Lisa, how bad is it?" Jake asked. Chief Brooks looked up from her engineering console, her face streaked with soot from electrical fires. "The railgun system is completely destroyed. The fusion reactor is stable but running at minimal power. We have maybe 6 hours of life support left." "What about propulsion?" "The engines are offline, but I think I can get them working again." "Give me 4 hours." Before Jake could respond, Amy called out from her station. "Captain, we're receiving multiple transmissions. The Coalition ship is requesting permission to come aboard and thank us personally. And sir, we're getting hails from Earth, from Coalition High Command, and from the Zephyrian Empire." Jake felt overwhelmed. An hour ago, they had been simple explorers. Now they were apparently the center of galactic attention. "Put the Coalition captain through first." Captain Veltar's face appeared on the screen, and Jake could see tears in her large crystal blue eyes. "Captain Morrison, I do not have words to express my gratitude. You risked everything to save people you did not even know. 800 lives, including my own daughter, are alive because of your courage." Jake felt embarrassed by the praise. "We did what anyone would have done, Captain." "No," Veltar said firmly. "The Zephyrians would have left us to die. Most of my own people would have done the same. What you did today will be remembered for 1,000 years." After ending the transmission with the Coalition ship, Jake had to deal with the flood of messages from across the galaxy. Earth Command wanted a full report. Coalition High Command wanted to discuss an alliance. Most surprisingly, the Zephyrian Empire wanted to talk about a ceasefire. The message from Zephyrian High Command was delivered by Fleet Admiral Mortek himself. The alien's red skin and sharp teeth made him look terrifying, but his voice was respectful. "Captain Morrison, I am Admiral Mortek of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. I wish to express my condolences for the loss of War Prime Theclon and his crew. They died as warriors should in honorable combat." Jake was surprised by the tone. "Admiral, I'm sorry for the loss of life. We only fired because civilians were in danger." "I understand, Captain. Theclon made his choice when he chose to target non-combatants. But I must ask, how many ships like yours does Earth possess?" Jake realized this was a crucial moment. The wrong answer could start a war that would destroy Earth. The right answer might bring peace. "Admiral, the Horizon is our only deep space exploration vessel. We are not a military power. We are explorers and scientists who want to learn about the galaxy." Mortek was quiet for a moment. "Captain, with respect, any species that can destroy our most powerful warships with a single shot is a military power, whether they choose to be or not. The question is, what kind of military power will you become?" Over the following days, as the Horizon limped back toward Earth with Coalition escort ships, the galaxy began to change. Both the Zephyrian Empire and the Crystalline Coalition sent diplomatic missions to Earth. Trade agreements that had been impossible before were suddenly being negotiated. Scientists from dozens of species requested permission to study human railgun technology. But the most important change was in the war itself. Fleet commanders on both sides began to reconsider their strategies. If humans could destroy dreadnoughts so easily, what would happen if they decided to take sides? What would happen if they built a real military fleet? Captain Veltar, speaking to the Coalition High Council, put it simply: "The humans saved us when they had nothing to gain and everything to lose. They could have stayed safe and let us die. Instead, they risked their lives for strangers. If we must choose allies in this galaxy, I know who I would choose." Admiral Mortek, addressing the Zephyrian War Council, was equally direct. "The humans destroyed our most powerful ship with technology we dismissed as primitive. They did it to protect civilians, not to attack us. But they could just as easily use that same technology to destroy our entire fleet. We must ask ourselves, do we want them as enemies or as friends?" As news of the incident spread, something unexpected began to happen. On worlds throughout the galaxy, ordinary people started talking about the humans who had risked everything to save strangers. Stories spread of a small ship that had stood against a dreadnought to protect children. Songs were written about the courage of 30 humans who had faced impossible odds. The galaxy had been at war for 3 centuries. Entire generations had grown up knowing nothing but conflict and death. But now, for the first time in living memory, people began to whisper about something that had seemed impossible: peace. Jake Morrison, exhausted and overwhelmed by the attention, sat in his damaged ship and wondered what they had started. He had fired one shot to save innocent lives. That shot had destroyed the most powerful warship in the galaxy and made every military commander rethink their strategies. The galaxy was trembling, not from fear alone, but from the possibility of something new. The age of endless war might finally be coming to an end, ended not by conquest or surrender, but by the simple actions of humans who believed that innocent lives mattered more than politics or power. One shot had indeed made the galaxy shake. 6 months after the Horizon destroyed the Void Render, Jake Morrison found himself in a place he had never expected to be: the Galactic Council chambers on the neutral world of Sanctuary. Prime, the massive building was designed to accommodate beings from hundreds of different species, with varying gravity, atmosphere, and environmental needs. Jake sat at a table sized for humans, wearing his simple Earth uniform among delegates whose clothing contained technology that humanity was only beginning to understand. Next to him sat Ambassador Helen Wright, Earth's first representative to the galaxy. She was a skilled diplomat who had spent the last 6 months navigating the complex political changes that one railgun shot had created. The centerpiece of the council chamber was something that made Jake both proud and uncomfortable: a simple tungsten rod, identical to the one that had destroyed the Zephyrian dreadnought. It sat in a place of honor, a reminder that the balance of power in the galaxy had fundamentally shifted. The implications of human kinetic weapons technology cannot be overstated. Ambassador Wright was explaining to the assembled delegates. For millennia, galactic warfare has been dominated by energy weapons and energy shields. Our railgun technology represents a complete paradigm shift that renders traditional defensive systems obsolete. High Admiral Mortek of the Zephyrian Empire spoke up. He had requested to attend this session personally, something that surprised many observers. Ambassador Wright, the Zephyrian Empire acknowledges the power of human weapons. We also acknowledge that Captain Morrison and his crew use this power to protect innocent lives, rather than to attack us. This speaks well of human character. Jake stood up to address the council. Even after 6 months, he still felt uncomfortable being the center of galactic attention. Admiral Mortek, members of the council, I want to make something clear. The Horizon was not a warship. We are explorers and scientists. We only fired because civilians were in danger. Admiral Gelnas of the Crystalline Coalition nodded her crystal blue head. Captain Morrison, that is precisely why the Coalition believes humanity should join the Galactic Council as full members. You had the power to destroy our enemies, but you chose to protect life instead. The proposal for human membership in the Galactic Council had been debated for months. Some species worried about giving too much power to newcomers. Others argued that any species capable of ending the 300-year war deserved a voice in galactic governance. The question before us, said Councillor Velran of the Altarian Republic, is not whether humans are powerful enough to deserve membership. The question is whether they can be trusted with that power. Jake looked around the chamber at faces that belonged to dozens of different species. Some had been enemies for centuries. Others had never spoken to each other before humans arrived. But they were all here talking instead of fighting, because of what happened in that asteroid field 6 months ago. If I may, Jake said, I'd like to tell you what really happened that day. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the basic facts, but Jake had never spoken publicly about his decision to engage the Zephyrian dreadnought. My crew and I were scared, Jake continued. We knew we were probably going to die. Our weapons were primitive compared to yours. Our ship was tiny. We had every reason to run away and let someone else handle the problem. He paused, looking at Admiral Mortek. But we couldn't watch innocent people die when we had the power to help them. It didn't matter that they weren't human. It didn't matter that we barely knew them. They were in danger and we could do something about it. Jake turned to address the full council. That's not special. That's not unique to humans. That's just doing what's right. Any of you would have done the same thing if you had the power and the opportunity. Admiral Mortek stood up, his massive frame dwarfing the other delegates. Captain Morrison, with respect, you are wrong. In 300 years of war, How many times do you think Coalition civilians were threatened while Zephyrian ships watched? How many times did Coalition forces ignore Zephyrian civilians in danger? The chamber was uncomfortable with the question. Everyone knew the answer. We told ourselves it was war, Mortek continued. We said that protecting enemy civilians would make us weak. We forgot that there is no honor in allowing children to die, regardless of what species they belong to. Counselor Velran leaned forward. Admiral, are you saying that the Zephyrian Empire is prepared to end hostilities with the Coalition? I am saying that the Zephyrian Empire is prepared to discuss terms for a permanent ceasefire, provided that the Coalition is willing to do the same. Admiral Gelnas stood up immediately. The Coalition has been hoping for this conversation for decades. Jake felt a mix of emotions as he watched former enemies begin to negotiate peace. Pride that his crew's actions had helped make this possible, relief that the killing might finally stop, and worry about humanity's role in whatever came next. Ambassador Wright addressed the Council. Earth's position is simple. We want to see peace in the galaxy. We want to explore, learn, and make friends with all species. But we will not tolerate attacks on innocent civilians regardless of who they are or which side they belong to. And if we refuse to make peace? Asked a delegate from a minor power that had profited from the war. Jake answered before the ambassador could speak. Then you'll find out what happens when humans decide to build a real military fleet instead of exploration ships. The threat was delivered quietly, without anger or aggression. But everyone in the chamber understood its implications. If humans could destroy dreadnoughts with exploration vessels, what could they do with purpose-built warships? Over the following weeks, the ceasefire negotiations moved faster than anyone had expected. Both sides seemed eager to end a war that had consumed the galaxy for centuries. The terms were surprisingly simple: immediate cessation of hostilities, return of captured territory, and the establishment of neutral zones to prevent future conflicts. But the most important provision was the creation of a joint peacekeeping force, with ships and crews from all member species. The force would be headquartered on Earth and would be equipped with human-designed kinetic weapons. Jake found himself appointed as the first commander of the Galactic Peace Fleet, a position he had never wanted but couldn't refuse. His first ship was the UES Peacekeeper, a vessel designed specifically for the new role. It looked similar to the Horizon but was larger and more heavily armed. Captain, Amy Carter said from her familiar position at the sensor station, we're receiving a distress call from the Vega system. Looks like pirates are attacking a civilian convoy. Jake smiled as he looked around his new bridge. Many of his original crew had volunteered to serve on the Peacekeeper, along with Coalition and Zephyrian officers who wanted to be part of something new. Amy, how long to reach Vega at maximum speed? 4 hours, sir. Ben, are our railgun systems ready? Ben Rodriguez, now Jake's weapons officer and one of the galaxy's leading experts on kinetic weapons, grinned. All systems ready, Captain. The pirates won't know what hit them. As the Peacekeeper accelerated toward the Vega system, Jake reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, he had been an explorer trying to avoid galactic politics. Now he was the commander of a peacekeeping force charged with maintaining order across dozens of star systems. The galaxy was no longer shaking from fear of human weapons. It was shaking from the changes that those weapons had made possible. The 300-year war was over. Former enemies were working together, and innocent people throughout the galaxy knew that someone was watching out for them. Jake Morrison had fired one shot to save lives he didn't know. That shot had destroyed a warship, ended a war, and created a new era of peace. But as far as Jake was concerned, the most important thing was that 800 Coalition civilians, including children, had lived to see their families again. Everything else was just politics. Captain, Amy called out, we'll reach the Vega system in 3 hours and 57 minutes. Thank you. Amy, signal the convoy that help is on the way. Jake sat back in his command chair and watched the stars stream by. Somewhere out there, pirates were threatening innocent people, but they were about to learn what the rest of the galaxy already knew. Humans had railguns, and they weren't afraid to use them to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The age of endless war was over. The age of enforced peace had begun, and it had all started with 30 humans who refused to watch children die. One shot had made the galaxy shake. Now the galaxy was learning to live without fear.